Hello YouTube pals, your friend, researcher, cryptozoologist, musician, author, and partner in the Crypto Four Corners International group with JC Johnson. Jane Rodriguez here. Like I said a couple of weeks ago, I'm going to be teaming up with Brenton Samhain at some point. And there was a story that we wanted to explore together with a friend of mine. So I met this fellow virtually. He wrote me an email after he heard my encounter with my dogman and Bigfoot at Vic Cundiff's show last October. Anyway, I think that's what it was, or he heard me on some other show. I've also been on Tim Beckley's show. But anyway, I wanted to give you a little update on just what's going on with me and my life, and also in addition to that, just some thoughts and opinions I have that are born out of years of research and meditation and prayer to discover the truth about these topics. And by these topics, I mean anything UFO, anything paranormal, anything Bigfoot related, anything that has to do with anything bizarre, or even what I call forbidden archaeology and history. All those topics I explore. And if you like my long hair, my daughter Muriel did it for me. She insisted that I wear hair extensions on my next video, so here I am. Anyway, so I'm going to finish up. I know Brenton wanted me to have this man on as a guest, or just have a podcast show about this man's lifelong experiences. And this guy I have an affinity for, because him and I not only have some similar viewpoints, but on just how we perceive the matters. I don't think he's a Christian, but he's a smart person, and we the truth is the truth, and we arrived at similar conclusions, because that's just the inevitability of the situation if you look into it deep enough and follow it to its root, which is kind of like my main thing. Is I follow everything to its root if I can, just all the way backwards to find its origin, right? Like, what good is dealing with a symptom of something, outward manifestation, without dealing with its root cause? So that's the whole point of my research, because that's the only answers that you're going to get, is what is its origin, right? Yeah, you haven't heard from me on any shows recently. It's kind of like how JC mentioned offhand, which I already knew. I haven't been interviewed or asked to be interviewed because I'm offensive. Like, my viewpoints, I don't attack people in a petty or gossipy or vicious manner person about how they look or anything. I don't care about that. What I'm all about is, first and foremost, my beliefs are very unpopular and they're made fun of all the time, or they make people feel uncomfortable, or they make people feel vitriolic and hate-filled and angry. And the more a person kind of jumps on bandwagons, the more a thought is kind of or an idea or trend is parroted and repeated blindly like sheep or cattle, the more rebellious I want to be. So, like, when I was playing saxophone for a very famous rock industrial band, the Revolting Cocks, I got the job because outwardly maybe they thought I was attractive and talented and blah blah blah, but once they got to know me, and what it was, the main thing was, during the last Obama election, I spoke out why I didn't support Obama, how disgusted I was with all the civil liberties being broken, how disgusted I was with people just following a cult of personality because he was black. They're just going to go ahead and vote for somebody without looking at the credentials. Like, just because she's a woman doesn't mean that, just because she's, I'm a Mexican woman, Apache and Irish, so I can say, as a person who is considered a minority, I'm not going to vote for an unqualified person just because they're a woman or a Mexican or whatever, purple, I don't care. My point is, if you're unconstitutional, if you're a globalist, if you're against my basic freedoms that my ancestors died for, I'm going to call you out, and I'm going to call out all the stupid little trendies who follow you blindly too. That's just the fact of the matter. So basically, me speaking out against very specific things, like let's just say the NDAA, which is the National Defense Authorization Act, which pretty much says that a military tribunal can secretly disappear a person, indefinitely detain them without informing anybody, their family or whatever. I spoke out against that, and guess who got that whole little thing into power? I think that was probably Bush, who used, the 9/11 thing as a pretext, and then Obama, our friend, because he's a liberal, he kind of advanced that. Anyway, my point is, I was warned to keep my mouth shut against my opinions regarding the facts regarding such. Otherwise, it'll cost me my career as a budding person in the music industry, which I could be famous right now and, have my wishes fulfilled in that respect, to keep my mouth shut, but I would not. In fact, it made me want to speak out even more. It made me more upset. It made me, it affirmed that I was right. So basically, I know I'm offensive to this other sphere that I was thrust into, with people who have the power to give me very good jobs or exposure. Some people do not appreciate my Christianity or political views, and it costs me interviews and this and that. Well, guess what? Good. I hope you choke on it. I'm glad. I'm not going to stop, because if I'm right and I have the right motives, if I want to serve God before man, then there's nothing that you can do for me that's better than what God can do for me. So you can just stuff that in your pipe and choke on it. But by the way, as an aside, I have been courted since I started getting public with my research and writing. I have been approached by agents in Beverly Hills that represent other very, very famous researchers, authors, and TV hosts. I have been interviewed for all sorts of TV jobs. So I'm not worried. That's not my primary ambition with this whole research in the first place. So God will bless my intentions if I keep my temper under control, and if I can, just keep my intentions on exposing the truth of the matter. So, I am a Christian, but I will not be afraid to explore the things that are too weird for mainstream Christians to address. In fact, I love that part. The Bible is full of all sorts of Christianity is a supernatural concept to begin with. So if you can't even recognize that for what it is, then perhaps you need to rethink what being born again means, because that means that you're literally possessed by the Spirit of God, and I love that. I want that. So anyway, I'm going to read for you an email I wrote, I made a YouTube video, parts 1 and 2, about my friend Jax from the UK encounters with a dog man. So I kind of made a teaser about the other things that he experienced in his lifetime that were very bizarre. And I think I shared my doppelganger story. But in that vein, I'm just going to read for you this email written by him. It was very interesting. In the 1980s, I ran a rock band doing the commercial circuit in England. We were expanding our operation down to London. Hold on, I'm just going to move this really quick. Down to London, and we found ourselves a third party. Now to London, and found ourselves hired to play at an officers club of a famous UK prison. I completely read that wrong, but that's okay. So I won't say which one, but it's a place with a well-deserved reputation as a hellhole, and they put that in capital letters, in which many of the inmates are either insane or borderline crazy. In consequence, many of the prison guards hired to secure such a place are ex-UK Special Forces SAS personnel. We had not long unloaded the van and got the gear set up when one of these big tough guards came up to me and called me by name. He got it right, too, by the way. And that's odd. I have never lived in London. I didn't know anyone there and had hardly ever visited the place. But this SAS guy definitely knew me and stretched out his hand, all smiles, and slapped me on the back like an old friend. Hold on one second. I'm going to remove that noise factor. Hold on. Sorry about that. Okay, so he was all smiles and he slapped me on the back like an old friend. I was very confused. He said, "Huh, Jack, it's me, remember?" I said, "No, I didn't," and then he was mistaken, and this went on for a minute or two. Him insisting we were old friends, claiming we had served together, and the SAS in the Far East in Australia, and we're the best of friends. But I told him I've never been in the military and I'd been a musician my whole life. So I didn't know him, and I had never seen him before, and that was the truth. While others present were looking concerned, shooting me glances that said, "No, Jack, this isn't the guy to fall out with." They expect me to suddenly admit to knowing him before there was trouble, because I guess this man was so insistent that they wanted him just to go along, you know. Indeed, as I continued to reject his suggestions of us knowing each other, he became hostile. In the end, he swore, turned on his heel, and stormed away. Oh, I want to tell you guys something that happened to me that this is reminding me of. It's very weird. But like Jack here, like I have a lifelong of these kinds of situations, and it's kind of makes life interesting. So he turned on his heel and he stormed away, and this was clearly something much more than a case of mistaken identity. SAS Secret Service guys in the UK received massive levels of training in identity recognition and memory storage techniques, etc. So he can sure as hell distinguish who he have met before and who he hasn't. So he slept on the floor, you know. After this went down, Jack slept on the floor, and the next day forgot all about it. And then a year or two later, they got a new guitarist to join a band, and he looked a lot like me. He held up a lot like me. Not a twin exactly, but certainly the resemblance was there. And you can tell that when he met me, he was thinking the same thing. So we'll call him Andy. Andy was a very dark horse in mood, temperament, and playing style. He was a man of secrets, and it was written all over him. I always felt weird how we needed a guitarist, and he just manifested out of thin air. So very soon we found ourselves straying from musical themes into UFO and paranormal, etc. He spoke of a secret military base in Norfolk, UK. This base he claimed was situated beneath another one, underground, and he said it was the center of ET contact, rather like a more discreet version of Area 51, and he said it dealt with aliens and human cloning. The stories he told of his own involvement with this phenomenon would require a book of all its own. One day, suddenly, he went very still and sullen, and he stared at me, and he said, "Do you realize that you're a master clone?" I asked him, "What the hell does that mean?" He answered, "It means you're a very old soul, an original soul, a sort of prototype from which they made hundreds of even thousands of clones." And I'll make an aside right here. I have been thinking about this very interesting topic for quite a long time. Before I read this email, I was listening to Linda Moulton Howe's stories of people who've had the soul transfer technology, and I made videos about it, about her encounters with military intelligence officers, you know, very high ranking, etc., who have talked about successful soul transfer technology given by the aliens. And then also I made videos about how there's a distinction between spirit and soul. So that's another thing just to put on your hat. And look into my catalog of videos and see for yourself. So going back to the email here. These words seem to bury themselves somewhere deep inside me. I should have laughed or dismissed it as any teenage rock guitarist would, but I didn't and I couldn't. Instead, my mind drifted back to what the SAS guy told me when we played in the prison, and on some dark, unknown level, suddenly it made a lot of sense. Okay, so Andy simply could have been a madman, but why the hell would he make up something like that? Why would the SAS guy do the same? The simple fact is my life has never been like that of other people, and that's, you know, something I can definitely relate to, so I'll just end it there. But on a personal note, when I was 21, because I had to be at least that, because I was able to drink legally in this bar in a neighborhood where I ended up moving to a couple years later, or a year later or so. But yeah, I was 21 at the most, I should say, and I was hanging out with my best friend who lived in that town. His name is Jason, and he had always been telling me, well, him and I have an interesting history together, first of all, anyway. Like, you know, all my friends on some way or another, like, have some kind of gift that would be considered like a spiritual you know, something bizarre. Like, either they see UFOs or they have interesting encounters with, like, intelligence, like, just really weird stuff. Like, that's who I draw and who my friends are. Anyway, so he was telling me where he worked at for many years. There's a man that works there who owned a robotics company, and he was a very intelligent, obviously, and successful man, and he was older. I would say around then in his 50s or late 40s, and so he was telling me how this guy, his name, I'll just shorten his initials to Jimmy, or just call him Jimmy. This guy would say things how his profound knowledge of the occult, and this would intrigue my friend Jason, because Jason would read stuff like that. My friends and I, since, you know, we were 13, would read, you know, hermetic witchcraft or magic. You know, I remember reading the Key of Solomon when I was in high school, and reading about who John Dee was, and reading about what the Ordo Templis Orientali was, started by Madame Blavatsky and Aleister Crowley. But anyway, so he was telling him about how his experience with witchcraft was, and this, you know, he was obviously smart in many other respects, very Faustian of him, right? So Jason and him would have a lot of really cool, interesting, deep conversations. And Jason, even though he was a Christian back then, you know, those were wild times, but he still was. And he would kind of go defensively, defending God and stuff that's anti-black magic or what have you. And this man would make very attractive arguments. And I myself have had conversations like this with other people who are very knowledgeable in both the Bible and witchcraft, and they do make very logical and attractive arguments for why, you know, they do what they do, and then they try to kind of like get you to, you know, join with them. And he was telling him that he was a member of a local chapter of the Golden Dawn, and the people who went to the meetings and practiced this witchcraft with him, which is, by the way, a very old, think of Real Society, think of the Thule Society that Hitler was a part of. This is a very old and successful order of witchcraft where many scientists, the fathers of rocket science-y, modern rocket science-y, they were involved in this particular vein of witchcraft. And so, you know, obviously Jimmy, being of the same ilk, was involved himself. So he was saying, well, in our local chapter, if you want to ever come and sit in, you know, he's saying this in just conversations that he had on and off with Jason at work. You know, we have priests that are witches that come, and they're still priests in the Catholic Church. We have local politicians, we have CEOs, we have housewives, we have all sorts of people. And what we do is we drink blood, we do our rituals, and we drink blood that's laced with LSD and stuff. And I don't know if I'm going to get in trouble for sharing this right now, I mean, in some sort, if I'm going to have some sort of backlash, but I met this man at a pub. Like I said, when I was 21 with Jason, and we were playing pool, and I found his information and mine to be very attractive to me on an intellectual and spiritual level, just out of the knowledge that he had. I've always had a temptation with that kind of stuff, and it's something that I still have to deal with because it's another kind of knowledge, you know, and that's the definition of occult, is that it's secret, hidden knowledge, and knowledge is power indeed. Anyway, so he was talking to me, and he kept saying to me, "What are you?" He's like, "Clearly you have some gifts, but what are you?" And I'm like, "What do you mean, what am I? I'm a college student, I'm a girl, like, what do you mean?" No, he's like, "What are you?" And I just kind of look at him and laugh. And then he did something that was really weird. He said, you practice magic, and you have been making spells that you have never told anyone that you do this, and no one ever taught you how to do it. And then he told me the things that I did that I never told a soul when I was a kid to get certain boys to like me that were 100% successful. He told me what I did and how I did it, and it was a completely original spell when I was a kid growing up. And I knew inside that I probably shouldn't be doing that when I was a kid or whatever, but I did it anyway, and he told me I did this. So he read my mind and he told me. And now I'm forgetting what else he said. I don't know what that is, but he invited me to come to his meetings too, and I declined. And right then and there I knew, wow, this is crazy. And he said that I was good at what I did, and, you know, all of that, like I said, is a temptation. It's attractive, it's appealing to your ego, right? So I just, you know, I left, and I let that kind of sink into my brain as the years go on. But yeah, this stuff exists, and it's it involves high-ranking military people, politicians, movers and shakers in society and in the scientific community. Just look up CERN and the Italian scientist who disclosed publicly the real goals and aspirations of that Large Hadron Super Collider. Anyway, like I tell people, if I wanted to sell out and, you know, use what I have physically and mentally and spiritually to become, you know, kind of like a rich musician, and I'm not saying this to toot my own horn, I'm just saying that that would be selling out, and I would not respect myself at the end of the day, and nor, I just don't have that I just don't have it as a part of me, who I am. It makes me want to be offensive. People who do that, or people who expect me to change my beliefs or how I am, so I can get more radio interviews. I'm glad. Good. Don't like me. I'd rather be nobody and do what I'm doing now and not make a dime than be on your show. But there are other people I'm talking to who are freaking awesome. They are open-minded, they are interesting, and you might see me on TV someday. Regardless, I encourage you, whoever is watching this, it's easy for me to be this way and have this attitude. It's harder for me to be organized and stuff like that. So like what I'm trying to say is my strong suits and my natural abilities are something that I have. So it's easy for me to be rebellious and say no, and not, you know, like, you know what I mean? And it's might be harder for you, just like it's harder for me to be organized and keep my ducks in a, you know, like to have a set schedule every day, and that might be easy for you. So we all have our strengths and weaknesses. That's the whole point of people needing each other and working together. But I encourage you to stay strong, and God will bless you if you don't sell out, if you don't compromise your beliefs, if you do the hard thing and stand up for the right and the good. It's better. It's just better. We need more people like that. Our world is turning to shit because good men have done nothing. And And it's not that we're outnumbered, it's just that people are complacent, and we need to mobilize, we need to get together, and we need to lean on each other and promote each other's inherent gifts and abilities. So whatever it is that you have, like, you know, please email me, and let's just work together on this. Let's change the world. That's all I have to say for now. I hope you have a wonderful week. God bless and take care. Bye. I can't turn this off now.